Okay, take 6. I can do this. I'm on caffeine. I have to remain calm here. A little bit too much tea. We had this faculty thing today. It was just like, it's Friday. I'm not supposed to be here. And so anyway, they gave me tea. And so good luck with this, you guys. These things are called brain sands, and they're basically calcium salts that deposit in the pineal gland in the 3rd or 4th decade of life. And so that's how you're going to identify the pineal gland during the endocrine practical. So if you see a bunch of black things on the slide, then you know it's the pineal gland. And these are the 4 things that you have to identify during the endocrine practical. You have to identify the actual endocrine organ, you have to know the hormone that's produced, you have to know the target cells that the hormone affects or lands on, and you have to know the effect of the actual hormone. And so this is the pineal gland, and the hormone that this gland releases is called melatonin. And melatonin goes out and it latches on to the brain cells, and what it tells the brain cells to do is basically start to become sleepy. So we call this our sleepy hormone. I don't know who calls it that, I do. So it's your sleepy hormone and causes you to be sleepy. So that's enough for the pineal gland. It's not a hard one to identify. Do you agree? Black stuff on the slide, pineal gland. Nothing else looks like it. Onward. If we can get there, let's see. Bing! Ovary. Look at that ovary. Okay, so you know it's an ovary. See this big little line right here? It's pointing to this thing. That's a Graafian follicle. If you see a big Graafian follicle, you know, hey, we're in the ovary. So there are several hormones produced in the ovary. We have all of our estrogens, and then we have progesterone being produced there. So estrogen and progesterone, two different things. Estrogen, well, the target cells are going to be different as well. Estrogen goes to the breasts, the hips, the bones, the uterus. Those are some of the target cells for estrogen. Progesterone affects the uterus, the cervix, and the breast. So if we just focus on estrogen, the effect of estrogen is going to be mainly our secondary sexual characteristics. For females, that means we look like females. That's what your secondary sexual characteristics would be. Like, for instance, it makes your hips, we deposit fat in our hips. And we have skinny waist, and we have big hips, you know, we look like women. And then when we deposit fat in our breasts, so those would be our secondary sexual characteristics. And estrogen also promotes puberty. You know, when we're first undergoing puberty, that's the hormone that's going to do that for us. And estrogen is also bone sparing. So what that means is up here, when estrogen, when I say it's a target cell of estrogen would be bones. Estrogen would go to your bones, and because it's bone sparing, it inhibits your osteoclast activity. So your osteoclasts don't eat away at your bones. So estrogen is good for our bones. And estrogen also affects your pubic symphysis during pregnancy. It makes it nice and mushy near the end of pregnancy to allow for childbirth. Now, if we go back up here, I think we've got all that. Progesterone, its effects are on the uterus, the cervix, and the breast. The cervix, I'll go ahead and tell you, it causes a nice little cervical mucus to be secreted. On the uterus, down here, the effects on the uterus, cyclical changes in the uterus over a monthly cycle, but also during pregnancy, because this is progestation, progesterone. During pregnancy, the uterus is quieted by progesterone, and it helps the breast prep for lactation. It does that also with estrogen. So, do we have everything there? Our identification, what hormones are produced, the target cells, and the effects. Now there's a lot listed on this slide. For lab practical day, you know, like for the ovary, I'll ask you, what's the identification? For this, there are 2 hormones being released. Since there are 2 hormones being released, chances are I'll only ask you for one of those hormones. I might ask you for 2, but chances are I'll only ask you for 1. And when I ask you for that one hormone that's going to be released, list one target cell for that hormone and list one effect. One target cell and one effect. I don't even really care if you list the target cell as being bone and then the effect being secondary sexual characteristics. I don't care if your target cell matches up with the effect. Give me one target cell and one effect for the hormone. Don't list everything that you see on this slide. Keep it very simple. Keep it very simple. I want identification, one hormone, one target cell, and one effect. If you give me two effects and one of those effect is wrong, I'm going to count all the effect wrong. So please keep it simple on Lab Practical Day. Please keep it simple. Here we have our adrenal cortex, and this is pointing to the zona reticularis. This line right here is the zona reticularis, right here, this dark line right here. We have our adrenal medulla in here. This whole inner region is the adrenal medulla. Then we have the zona reticularis, and then this light region here, this big zone here that's lighter, is the zona fasciculata, and then this outer region here is the zona glomerulosa, and then the lightest region out on the outside is the actual capsule for the adrenal cortex. But on this slide we're going to focus just on the zona reticularis. So if you see this on Lab Practical Day, you would identify this as the adrenal gland, but then you need to put specifically that this is the zona reticularis. So this is an additional identification for the adrenal gland. So we've got the zona reticularis here, and what is the hormone produced here? You can put gonadotropins, you can put androgens, or you could put the word testosterone. Those three terms are absolutely fine here because the androgens are produced here, aka the gonadotropins, aka testosterone. Those are all fine for you to put down on your Lab Practical. The target cell for the gonadotropins would be these right here: brain, prostate, testes, penis, muscles, bone marrow, skin, hair. Females, you guys don't have the prostate, the testes, the penis, but we all have skin, hair, bone marrow, muscles, brain, etc. And this is the little tricky one right here, because when we release testosterone from our zona reticularis, we don't release a lot of testosterone, and in the case of our zona reticularis releasing these androgens, we don't release a lot, and it's not to go out and beef up our muscles or like testosterone that's being released by the male testes to cause the penis to grow, or etc., do other things that testosterone really does. In this case, the effect is probably the onset of puberty. So it's just a little bit of testosterone. It's the amount of testosterone that females have in their body. So you can list one of these target cells, whichever target cell that you like the best, put it down on Lab Practical Day, just one. Because say you list brain, prostate, say you want to list all of these, and you had kidney out there, and the kidney is not one of the target cells, then, and you've listed all of those and they're all right, and you decide to get fancy and you put kidney on there, you're going to get it wrong. So don't add anything extra. Just put one target cell down there, and then the effect is going to be the onset of puberty. The next one. This is the zona glomerulosa, this outermost ring out here. And in the zona glomerulosa, the region, the hormones that's produced would be the mineralocorticoids. And you can say mineralocorticoids, or you can just simply say aldosterone. And the target cell for aldosterone, I hope you guys know this by now, the target cells will be cells of the kidney, and it tells the kidneys to resorb sodium, so therefore the effect is going to be increasing blood pressure. And I know you guys memorized a lot on aldosterone, just put increased blood pressure. Okay, for our zona fasciculata, here's this big region in here. If I point anywhere in here in this lighter region, it's the zona fasciculata. This is where we release our glucocorticoids, or cortisol. And cortisol reaches out and affects a lot of different organs, mainly the liver, but it also affects adipose tissue, muscle, and bone. And its main effect is to increase blood sugar and help you negotiate stressful situations. It increases your blood sugar. So by affecting the liver, it just tells the liver to break down glycogen and release blood sugar, like overnight, for instance. And so that is your effect of cortisol. I feel like we haven't done all those zones, but I guess we have. For the adrenal medulla, it's this middle region in here, all this middle region, and these big areas right here are just big veins. This middle region is made of all chromaffin cells. This is the adrenal medulla. If you want to look up how to spell that, do, but these are all chromaffin cells. Unlike this outer whole region, which is made of endocrine tissue, this whole inner region is made of sympathetic nervous tissue called chromaffin cells. And so what those chromaffin cells do is they release the catecholamines, and the catecholamines are epinephrine and norepinephrine. And I misspelled norepinephrine, of course I did. And what they do is they enhance the fight or flight response. And how they do that is they go to the target cells like the heart, our blood vessels, bronchioles, the pupils, the digestive system. And for instance, for the heart, they'd speed up heart rate. For the blood vessels, they would constrict blood vessels. For the bronchioles, they would dilate the bronchioles in the lungs. For the pupils, they would dilate your pupils so you could see better. For the digestive system, they would stop digestion altogether. So these hormones enhance the flight or fight response. I'm hoping all of this is coming back to you. Okay, the parathyroid gland. Now, the parathyroid gland, you'll recognize it. All these little arrows are trying to let you know what you're going to recognize on it. It has two different big groups of cells. These are oxyphil cells down here that stain differently than the chief cells up here. And parathyroid gland usually has a bunch of fat in it. So here is fat. And remember that here's fat cells here. Fat cells, oxyphil cells, chief cells. So that's what you look for when you see a parathyroid gland. Just a bunch of uneven staining everywhere. And the parathyroid gland is right behind the thyroid. Okay, so here's our ID, parathyroid gland. The hormone produced is parathyroid hormone, and what it does is it goes out to your bone, your kidneys, and the small intestines, and it's all to increase blood calcium levels. It tells the osteoclast to break down bone and release calcium into the blood to increase blood calcium levels. Do you remember this? I hope so. It tells kidneys to resorb calcium from urine, put that back into the blood, and it tells the small intestines to resorb more calcium from food. So the parathyroid hormone is all about increasing your blood calcium levels, and we need that blood calcium for proper blood clotting. We need it for proper control of the nervous system and proper muscle functioning. Here's our pancreas, and we know that it's pancreas because we see our little islets of Langerhans. I should have an arrow here and an arrow here. There's an islet of Langerhans, and here's another islet of Langerhans. And so all of these other cells that you see here are called acinar cells. All the other dark cells all around here, these are acinar cells. These are they make digestive enzymes to help you digest all of the foods that you eat. Proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, nucleic acids are produced by the acinar cells, A-C-I-N-A-R, acinar cells. And then these are the islets of Langerhans. These islets of Langerhans are made of alpha and beta cells, and the beta cells make up insulin. Alpha cells release glucagon. And insulin has the target cells of liver and muscle and body cells. They affect most all cells in the body, insulin does. Glucagon, the target cells for glucagon would be the liver and kidneys. And these two hormones are going to do exact opposite things. Insulin is going to lower blood glucose levels because it's going to tell the liver and the muscle and the body cells to take glucose inside and store liver in the case of the liver, store glucose in the case of liver and muscle. and it stores glucose as glycogen, if you'll recall. And it tells the body cells to take glucose inside so the body cells can use the glucose to make ATP. And so insulin lowers blood glucose levels. Glucagon, on the other hand, it raises blood glucose levels because I hope you remember this. Glucagon tells the liver and the kidneys, well, it tells the liver to break down glycogen, and it will break down glycogen to release glucose, and so that raises blood glucose levels, but it can also tell the kidneys the same thing. Alright, so two antagonistic hormones right here, insulin and glucagon. Let's see what we have here. The testes. So of all the things on this slide, only these little groups of cells here, 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 all this stuff. Between these round things here, these cells here, these are called interstitial cells or Leydig cells. Leydig, Leydig cells or interstitial cells. These are the groups of cells here, all these cells here and in here. The Leydig cells or the interstitial cells, like where this blue arrow is pointing to. These are the cells that secrete testosterone. So this is the testes, the whole slide of the testes, and they secrete androgens or testosterone. And they have lots of different target cells. Testosterone targets the brain and makes men crazy. I'm just kidding. The prostate, testes, penis, muscles, bone marrow, skin, hair. And the effect is the secondary sexual characteristics. It makes men look like men. You know, it puts fat distribution in different places than women. Men don't have little waist and big hips like women. Their fat distribution is more in their belly if they gain a lot of weight, for instance. They have smaller hips. Their bones are shaped differently. Also, testosterone affects the formation and growth of the male reproductive tract. It's definitely required for spermatogenesis, and spermatogenesis is the formation of sperm. So here we have sperm right here, and this is sperm, and this is sperm, and this is sperm, and all this is sperm. So these little tubes here are sperm forming tubes, and so we have little sperm in here. And all these little, so this is a cross section through the testes, and we have sperm in here. And testosterone is definitely required for the production of sperm, which is called spermatogenesis. And testosterone is responsible to stimulate the growth spurt in males at puberty, and causes skin and hair changes at puberty. It turns over to a really thick hair, coarse hair, and causes growth in our muscles. And in men, and stimulates hematopoiesis, which is red blood cell formation, and promotes aggressiveness and libido, go figure. So all of those things are, oops, sorry about that. Try to get that away. All of those things are attributed to testosterone. Dun, dun, dun. Now is our thymus. The thymus, this is a pretty slide. I like this slide. Okay, lots of purple. This outer region of the thymus is called the cortex, and we have the inner medulla, but they're all lymphocytes in here in the thymus. You can always tell your thymus because it just, to me, it looks like a bad dye job, like, you know, somebody spilled some bleach in here. But it's just the inner medulla, just fewer lymphocytes in here compared to the more lymphocytes on the outside. And our thymus, you can pick which hormone you want to use. You can use thymosins, you can say thymopoietins, you can say thymulins. The thymulins are the more important ones when it comes to this. But the target cell of the thymus, or these hormones being produced, that's driving me nuts, will be the lymphocytes. And what it does is it helps with the development of the lymphocytes. So the thymus is all about lymphocytes. That was a quick slide. Oh no, I wish we could skip this one. Notice how it says referred to chart, referred to chart, referred to chart. This is a pretty bad picture, but I couldn't get anything bigger than this. This is your anterior pituitary and your posterior pituitary, or the adenohypophysis and the neurohypophysis. The neurohypophysis really looks like underneath the microscope like blue cotton candy because it's made of pituocytes. It's made of neural cells, where the adenohypophysis is really colored beautifully like stained glass. Lots more color in the adenohypophysis. Is made of endocrine tissue. So two totally different tissues here. Endocrine tissue, neural tissue. Neural tissue, endocrine tissue, hence the name. Adenohypophysis, spelled wrong, whoops. Neural tissue, neurohypophysis. So let's talk about some of the hormones that are released here. In the neurohypophysis, we're only going to have two hormones that are released by the neurohypophysis, oxytocin and ADH. And oxytocin is going to be, well, it's going to be, I wish we had the, oh, we've got it right here. Oxytocin, the target cell for oxytocin is going to be the uterus, and let's wait for my bird to chirp. Okay, I think it's done. No, it's not. Okay. Oxytocin, the target cells are going to be the uterus, but it could also be the epithelial cells of the breast. So, and the effect is going to be uterine contraction and also letdown of breast. So, two things for oxytocin. And you have this, you should have this on a chart that I have given you. So, antidiuretic hormone released by the neurohypophysis. The target cells for antidiuretic hormone will be the kidneys, and what it will be, the effect of it is to increase blood pressure. And it increases blood pressure in two ways. Well, you don't even have to know the two ways. You could just say increase blood pressure. It does it by your kidneys, by the way, resorbing water, not sodium, resorbing water and through vasoconstriction. So we're done with the neurohypophysis, oxytocin and ADH. But there are 6 hormones from the anterior hypophysis to know. There is the prolactin, and prolactin would be, target cell would be breast, and the effect of that would be production of milk. For the next one, we could do growth hormone. And so if we do growth hormone, I would say the target cell for growth hormone would be muscles and bones, and the effect would be growth. That would be the easiest thing to say there. Another hormone would be thyroid stimulating hormone, and the target cell for thyroid stimulating hormone would be the thyroid, and the effect would be to stimulate the release of thyroid hormone. Another hormone would be, what would another hormone be? Adrenocorticotropic hormone. An adrenocorticotropic hormone, the target cell of adrenocorticotropic hormone would be the adrenal cortex, and the effect would be the release of corticosteroid hormones. So, I don't even know what hormone we're left with. We did growth, thyroid stimulating, we did ACTH, we did prolactin, we did luteinizing. Okay, so luteinizing hormone, that's a hard one. Okay, so luteinizing hormone, the target cells for that one would be the gonads, and the effect would be the release of, or the production of gonadal hormones, so like the production of estrogen and testosterone, and it also stimulates ovulation. So that's luteinizing hormone. And that is our last one, I think. We may have left one off, but you'll need to look those up yourself. For the adenohypophysis, usually I'll ask for you to know at least 3 of the 6. Sometimes I ask for 4. So know 4 to be on the safe side. Know 4 hormones for the adenohypophysis to be on the safe side. And from the neurohypophysis, I would know both of those to be on the safe side. I like my pituitary gland. But you don't have to know them as well as you had to know them during the endocrine chapter. Oh, we've got another one. Thyroid. Here's the thyroid. This is a really good slide. On the thyroid gland, now this is the colloid in the middle. These are the follicle cells around the follicle, because this whole thing is a follicle. This is the colloid. Here's a follicle cell. And these cells here between the follicles, these are the parafollicular cells. And so you have two different sets of cells here because we've got two different hormones. We have thyroid hormone being secreted by these cells here, the thyroid hormone secreted by the follicle cells, and then calcitonin being secreted by these parafollicular cells. So here's the parafollicular cells secreting calcitonin. And thyroid hormone, the target cell of thyroid hormone is most all body cells. But calcitonin, the hormone that's released by these guys, calcitonin affects just your bone and your kidneys. So what thyroid hormone is going to do, it's your major metabolic hormone. It has a calorigenic effect, meaning it raises your basal metabolic rate, because it promotes the glucose catabolism, the breakdown of glucose so you can make ATP. But look at all the other stuff that it does. It promotes the normal functioning and development of all your body systems: cardiovascular, nervous, muscular, gastrointestinal, integumentary, and reproductive systems. So without thyroid hormone, you're not going to develop properly. So thyroid hormone, besides just raising your metabolic rate, it is for the normal functioning and development of all your body systems. And then we have calcitonin, and calcitonin, it decreases blood calcium levels. And I know I'm saying like, oh yeah, it does the opposite of parathyroid hormone here, but calcitonin is not a really big player in this. But you can remember that it decreases blood calcium levels. If you give it in a hospital setting, if they give you calcitonin therapeutically, it's going to lower blood calcium levels, but in your body it doesn't really do a big job of lowering blood calcium levels. But you can remember that it lowers blood calcium levels by remembering tone down calcium levels. Calcitonin tones down calcium levels, and it's produced by these cells right here, the parafollicular cells. And that is it. Shoo! Shaking the spot. Lights, people.